we are watching what could be one of the most consequential shifts in Western security architecture since the end of the Cold War. President Trump has ordered the withdrawal of 5,000 U.S. troops from Germany, warned that cuts are going much further, and NATO allies are rattled, with Spain and Italy reportedly next in line. Germany's defense minister says it's foreseeable, which raises the question: foreseeable and yet still unprepared. Joining me now are Marcus Webb, our defense and security analyst, and Sophia Reeves, our economics and markets editor. Marcus, let me start with you. Is Trump blowing up the Western alliance, or is he finally doing what no one else had the guts to do?
Thanks, Emma. Let's be absolutely clear about what's happening here. This is not recklessness. This is 3 decades of deferred accountability arriving all at once. Germany, the 4th largest economy on the planet, spent the better part of 30 years treating the NATO 2% target like optional homework. Merkel smiled, collected the trade surpluses, kept the gas pipeline to Moscow running, and let American enlisted men and women subsidize German security, while Berlin lectured Washington about the importance of multilateralism. Douglas Murray has been making this argument for years. Europe developed a kind of strategic infantilism, a refusal to take its own defense seriously because the Americans would always be there. Well, now they might not be. And I would argue that this moment, as uncomfortable as it is potentially the most important catalyst for genuine European rearmament since the Soviet threat dissolved. The question isn't whether Trump is being diplomatic. He's not. The question is whether the shock therapy works.
But, Marcus, here's the counter-argument that a lot of serious defense analysts are making. You don't withdraw 5,000 troops while Russia is actively killing civilians in Ukraine, while there are drone strikes in Kherson happening this very weekend. Isn't the timing catastrophically dangerous regardless of the underlying principle? And Sophia, what's your take on this?
Well, look, Marcus isn't wrong about the burden-sharing problem, but I think he's letting the cart lead the horse here. Here's what I think Marcus is missing. The economic cost of strategic uncertainty is enormous, and it lands immediately. The moment you signal to markets and to adversaries that the American security guarantee is variable, contingent, and subject to Twitter announcements, you've changed the risk calculus for every investment, every defense contract, every alliance negotiation in Europe. Germany's defense ministry says it's foreseeable. Fine, but foreseeable doesn't mean manageable. The accumulated underspending across NATO's European members over 30 years has been estimated at over $1 trillion. You cannot close that gap in 12 months. So while the principle of burden sharing is entirely correct, the execution here, 5,000 troops, more threatened, no clear framework for what comes next. That's not leverage, that's instability. And markets hate instability more than they hate bad policy.
I hear what Sophia is saying, but with respect, that misses the point entirely. You know what else creates instability? Telling Vladimir Putin for 30 years that NATO will always be there, no matter what Europeans do or don't spend. That's the instability that produced the invasion of Ukraine. The uncomfortable truth is that soft guarantees invite hard aggression. And look, 2 people were killed in Kherson in a drone strike this weekend. Russia is making frontline progress right now. Does anyone seriously believe that a few thousand American troops in Germany are the thin line between European security and Russian expansion? The real deterrent is European militaries that can actually fight. Short sentences matter here. Build the armies, fund the equipment. Stop relying on American families to bear the burden. That's the only long-term answer.
Here's what I want to know, and this is the question that keeps me up at night. If Spain and Italy are next, if this is the beginning of a systematic American withdrawal from European defense, where does this end? Sophia, where do you see this going over the next 6 months?
The way I see this playing out, you get one of 2 outcomes. Either this functions as genuine leverage. MERDs and the European leaders feel enough pressure that you start to see binding, credible rearmament commitments with real timelines and real funding, which would actually be a net positive for Western security over a 5 to 10-year horizon. Or, and this is the risk, European political paralysis kicks in. Brussels retreats into its default mode of committees and strategic papers, and the trajectory continues toward a real security vacuum in Central Europe at the worst possible moment. Given the pace of Russian advances in Ukraine right now, That second scenario should terrify everyone in this conversation.
Here's what concerns me most: the third scenario that nobody is talking about. If American drawdown accelerates and European cohesion fractures, France will move to position itself as the dominant European defense power. Macron has been signaling this for years. That is not necessarily good news for Poland, the Baltic states, or anyone who has historically relied on the American security umbrella as a check on great power ambitions within Europe itself. The risk here isn't just Russia. It's a European security architecture that fragments along national interest lines, with smaller nations left exposed. History tells us that's exactly the kind of vacuum that creates the conditions for serious miscalculation. Trump may be right on the principle and dangerously wrong on the sequencing, and that combination is what keeps serious defense analysts awake at night.
Powerful analysis from both of you. One thing's certain, someone in the Bundestag is definitely not sleeping well tonight, and frankly, given 30 years of taking American security for granted, that might be exactly the point.